The boy shook his towel lightly.
No, no.
At that moment, he was waiting in line for an interview when a small dog suddenly snatched his scarf. Paul chased after it and ended up in a run-down alley. The dog had disappeared, leaving only a dilapidated door with a "Now Hiring" sign. Paul walked in. The interview began quickly, but before Paul could introduce himself, the interviewer called out his name accurately. Rather than professional knowledge, the interviewer seemed more interested in his morning experiences. With no choice, Paul told everyone that he had originally planned to attend a different interview, but unfortunate events kept happening. First, both his shoelaces broke, then his toaster exploded, and while waiting in line for the interview, a dog rushed out and took his scarf. It seemed someone wanted him to come here. The interview ended quickly. Back home, Paul didn't have much hope for this interview. But just then, a monster's large hand dropped a letter through his window. His roommate helped open it. Surprisingly, it was a job offer from Wells Company. The strange thing was, how did they know his address? Early the next morning, Paul walked into the company. Paul was confused, but he was more curious about what his job would be. So he went to the front desk, but the woman's words were peculiar. Soon, Mr. Turner appeared from upstairs and took Paul up. The upper floor was under renovation, and Turner's movements seemed a bit strange.
Don't panic.
Walking into the office, Turner told Paul the company had only one rule. Everyone must leave promptly at 5 o'clock, and absolutely could not return to the company after hours. Finally, Paul arrived at his office only to discover another girl would be working with him. The girl's name was Sophie, and she seemed somewhat aloof. Paul gathered his courage to ask about his day's work when suddenly, just at that moment,
What?
Ross pushed in a cart of blueprints, and their job was to mark aluminum ore locations on the maps. But Paul knew nothing about mineral surveying and could only pretend to work for half the day.